Hello, hello. Welcome back. I'm Renfarno, technical designer at UX is Fine, and today we're going to do a little refresher on MVVM. So there was this this really cool tutorial set, I believe by Irene, yeah. And it goes over a bunch of stuff. I haven't done this in a while. I've used MVVM in the past. It came out a while back, and essentially what it does is it helps you decouple gameplay, state, and logic to UI visuals in a way that is more maintainable, scalable, and performant. Because in a traditional UI flow, you would be binding and creating a bunch of blueprints and setting up delegates. There are certain types of bindings that you would generally avoid, but even setting up a bunch of delegates to sort of listen to events on change, it's just a bunch of boilerplate code that you have to write. And MVVM helps you handle that as well, so it's a lot more readable. And it really helps with iteration as well. So if you're in a larger team, your benefits are obviously you get to have your programmers write the business logic and your UI developers set up the UI, and your artists, designers, setting up on the UI end. And so there's actually a little page here that I wanted to show as well. So this is Harris Barra. So let's just take a quick read through this one, and we'll familiarize ourselves a little bit more on MVVM in general, and then we'll go back to this this page here. They're both linked in the description below, so go check them out if you're into UI UMG and you want to know how to do it in sort of the bleeding edge, cutting edge tech that Unreal Engine has to offer to manage these things. Yeah, if you're in a big team, it's going to help obviously with working collaboratively. If you're in a small team, it helps just to make it readable and maintained, nice and segmented thought processes basically, so you're not noodling around with a bunch of blueprints. Just take a look here. So we've got some documentation here for MVVM in general. This is C++ portion, which I'm not going to cover. Maybe in the future. I do plan on returning to some C++ in the future, but I tend to do a lot of prototyping, so it's not something that I need because I can create view models in Blueprint as well. So this is their Epic's main page for this. There is a Blueprint variant where Epic go over, or one of the staff at Epic goes over doing this in Blueprint. I wonder if I can find it. Oops. Smack my microphone. So this is just going to show me all of the pre-constructed documentation for the editor. I don't want the API documentation. Shame I didn't save the reference to the page, but let's not noodle around too much. UMG View Model is Epic's MVVM solution. It's a plugin that you can enable. It separates and makes the UI independent by removing code from the UI, which is what we spoke about. And so you have basically this picture here, which helps sort of, and is what I actually used for the thumbnail. So thanks Tech Target, all rights reserved. So we have the view, which is your UMG, which is where you're going to put all of your panels and your images, your text blocks, which is bound to a view model. The view model is we might be able to see a picture of one in here somewhere. It's this little bit here. And essentially you pick an element from your hierarchy, you pick which is this first block, you pick a condition or a converter through these last two, which is you're now binding things directly in there. So that's your view model, it's all your data. It's like literally a roster of data. And that gets updated from the model. So say the model is like a system that you've coded, say it's an inventory, and the player presses, let's say the player presses a button on the keyboard, which is like change item, and you want your UI to react to that. The model, which is your inventory and what you have equipped, is going to trigger an event and update the view model. The view model is now going to know that the currently equipped item has changed, and something in your UI, like an image in the bottom corner, is bound as an image to some data that comes from this view model based on that information changing. Maybe it's a data asset that holds a soft reference to a texture. That comes back to your view now. So what happens is you get to develop this view quite freely, and you just bind to view model properties and functions if you need them, like get something as a %, for example, for a progress bar. Might be a function that you have in your view model as opposed to just a straight property. And then we have our view, so yeah. It's pretty straightforward, and having coded UMG for a long time, what I tend to do before using this system is I would have my UMG, which would generally get instantiated with a reference directly to the system in mind. So it would be like, I am an inventory UMG representing the inventory. So I want to know about the inventory, and I want to bind directly to delegates within the model, in this case, so the inventory. I'm going to bind to a delegate that says on item changed, which has an out parameter of the item that's been changed to, and I would manually in Blueprint code, like update the image, or some style, play an animation, etc. So now what we've done is we've basically split that code that goes into the view layer, into the UMG. We've offloaded that away from designers and artists, and we've put it into this view model, which can actually be more malleable in a sense, because a programmer can update the code and the delegates here as long as this view model retains the information that it had in terms of names, descriptions, images, functions that are used in the view. Then both ends of this can change at any time, whereas previously, like I was saying, direct reference to the model, if they change a function or a signature in the model for the inventory, I have to update the UI because the UI blueprint has references to those functions. So that's basically what we're looking at here. Designers and artists can stay and iterate on designs without having to touch any code, and at any stage an artist and a programmer can step in between. Yeah, there's no collisions there. The new Tomb Raider game is using this design pattern. I'm sure a lot of games do. It's like model view controller or model view view model. It's event driven. Yeah, it has this, it's event driven. So previously you would create delegates that you would bind to on item changed in your UI, like straight in the blueprint. You would bind to that in your system, from your system, like your inventory system, and you would update with blueprint logic and through event dispatches and stuff like that. Well, now you're just replacing that framework. And in fact, he says the same thing. I haven't read this yet, by the way, which is on very much the same page. So now, yeah, because the system is event driven, it has these field notifiers, it's called. They will notify from the model to the view. Very, very nice and very, it's just well featured, so it's very good. It can cause some performance overhead if events are not properly set up. So actually I found, in contrast, that the performance is better, generally speaking. Because there are times in Blueprint where, well, firstly, you are crafting a bunch of delegates rather than it being direct event driven. So all these delegates are just stacking up. They're weighted. Not sure how much overhead that actually has. But in other cases, if you've got the old binding, which you can turn off now, there's like a binding element where you can say, bind this to certain text property in my widget or some other reference. That's just on tick. So that's just like costing you overhead. So nowadays you've got, with this system, it's event driven, it's field notifies, it's not requiring a ton of delegates. Although the field notified to some degree is like a replicated notify. This article is about the new view model, or is in the new view model system. It's been out for months. It's MVVM in Unreal, so UMG view model. It's a plugin that comes in Unreal. It's either still in beta or coming out of beta. It came out in 5.1 last year, and that's back when I touched it for the first time. I quickly got into it, took a look, enjoyed it. It does take some time to set up. It's much better in larger teams. Even in a small team though, a small project, it does help you with managing your code. and just having good design patterns in general. And so the concept is that we're, for your reference, what we've been talking about is just the benefits of it. So you can watch back on the stream at some point and check out a lot of that conversation. But we're taking a look at basically this this file by Harris Barrett. It's linked in the description if you want to take a read. And we're also taking a look at this by Irene, designing from Unreal. So this is we're gonna watch through these videos, and I've got a project open that we can also take a look at in a little while. And we're sort of just like refreshing our knowledge on MVVM, and then we're going to start creating our own UI of some degree. We don't know what it will be yet. Open to suggestions. Could be a character select, could be an item select, could be on-screen HUD in-game stuff, could be anything really. As for drawbacks, yeah, okay. So now show an example from a project. So we have get ammo with padding. Sure. Okay, so we have a function that's inside the widget. It's getting ammo. It's saying, hey, I've got a reference to my character directly in my widget. So we've already coupled the widget to the character in terms of reference chain and size map. And then we're getting the magazine information from the character, which of course, this is horrible. Your magazine data would obviously be in a component of some kind or through some system like inventory. But anyway, for this example, it's straight on the character. And then we're saying if that human isn't valid, then we're just going to return nothing. And if the human is valid, then we can get the magazine information and we can draw it. So it seems normal in that case, but obviously I've already noted that like there's a hard reference here coupling the player character straight to our UI, which is not nice, and MVVM helps us resolve that. At least in the UMG. A couple of things that could happen, yeah, he mentions them here. The name of this class could change, the location of this class could change, the name of this variable could change. The location of this variable could change, it could be moved into a component, etc. Anytime any of those things happen, the programmer has to go and open the widget and recompile the widget and rehook up the information. And that's really what the MVVM helps with, because you've got this intermediary data roster. And so if the programmer wants to update the data, they just update the roster. And the roster's general information comes from a designer, right? Because the designer's got the UI, they're saying, I need ammo, I need such and such. So the information that comes out of the view model is generally going to be unchanged to the view, so you'd never really need to change the view. There are cases where you might change the names of things in here, and you would need to update the view. But if you've got good design patterns and you've got pretty good iterative process then to iterate on these view models in terms of adding new things and not changing the old ones, deprecating things, then you basically have a decoupled system, which is nice. Yeah, so we don't want the blueprint widget to become an issue for the programmers. We want it to be front-end content that reacts to changes in state from the back end. That's basically the long and short of it. It says construct your work to base off of delegates, yeah, which is what we spoke about earlier. You could plug the ammo into tick, but that would be pretty expensive. Yeah. Best place to tell the view model to update is after you've decremented your ammo. So in a multiplayer game, you can actually do like rollback and or like kind of authoritative flow with MVVM as well, because you can do like two-way setters and stuff. So that we might get into later though. Yeah, MVVM seems to be helpful to connect designers and devs to align ideas, chat says, and so yes, absolutely. If you're unfamiliar with it, it's a function that fires anytime a variable is open. This is a net notify, right? Yeah, I mentioned this earlier as well. There's an onRep notify feature that I mentioned is very similar to the field notify that's in MVVM, and that is basically on this property having become dirty or changed, then we'll push an event that we can bind to and listen to or run functions from. update code. Yeah, this is very common actually. So having an onRep variable in a character that's like is dead. This is a bit of an old system if you're not using the game playability system. If you're using just like default, basic code, you've got an onRep boolean, let's say, called isDead, and when that onRep value changes, you would then call the delegate for onDead changed. So you'd have a bunch of boilerplate that you're starting to write. You've got the onDead event, you've got this extra code for the delegate, and you'll see that pattern throughout like a class. In game playability system sort of helps with that a little bit because you can just bind directly to the existence or removal of certain tags in a roster, which is like basically enumerated and very cheap to replicate as well, for like all kinds of states, right? Whether you're like poisoned or slowed or stunned and all these sorts of things in game playability system. It's just a little bit better than onRep and a little bit better than delegation, because essentially it's everything tied in, and you could, as long as you've got a reference, I suppose, in a view model to your ability system. So I think that's what we might do at some point in the future, in the next few weeks, is do a gameplay ability system meets MVVM common UI, kind of like the full feature set kind of bundled together in some sort of action RPG example. I think that would be a nice little project. And fun, because it's, action RPG. So yeah, so here you can see that you've got an event running on the client. I don't like this. But yeah, we've got binding. He's showing a binding here. And similarly in C++, but we're not necessarily looking at that. So I find this, he's talking about replicated view models here. So again, like, yeah, you wouldn't necessarily want to do this through attributes in game playability system, but maybe I'm thinking too far into something else. So, but essentially what's happening is the ammo is updating, and then they're telling the view model to update the ammo in there as well. So you're basically like daisy chaining the information down into that view model, which your view can then update from. And then we have a getter here, get ammo string from int as a string, sure, so that it can go straight into a text block. Yeah, in the widget basically. There is actually already a conversion function for that straight in UMG, so you could just return the ammo number, and that would actually be more modular in a way, because you now have an integer that you can play with in the view model, and you could say, oh, I've got a progress bar, I know what the max ammo is, I know what the current ammo is, I could play with those variables, and I could create a blueprint conversion function for a progress bar. Or I think there's actually a conversion in there now for that as well. Okay, in our view UI of choice, we implement the view model, and you can see the string is available. Yeah, get mag ammo string. So these are always pure functions, if I remember correctly. Yeah, so blueprint pure here, const because nothing can change the interior of this, and field notify because basically when you bind your widget like this, so we've got some sort of text field that we're going to use the get mag ammo string. The field notify basically says whenever this changes, we're going to field notify this, which will update everything else. And that's pretty much it for this guy. So he's very much shown us the basics. So let's go and watch this video. This is the next portion of today's little refresher on MVVM. So I'm just going to pause the music. We're going to hit play on this and just get familiarized. So this tutorial shows you how to handle UI navigation on a screen in a simple and flexible way using the model view model pattern to create a selection view model and a common activatable widget to maintain focus or manage focus. The process requires zero coding and will be focused on UMG and blueprint based MVVM, which is what I was talking about as well earlier. It's like, as prototyping, it's awesome as well, because you can just prototype in blueprint, and you could always convert that stuff to C++ later on. But you can get like pretty much all the way there if you know technical design, system design. In this case, MVVM is a system, it is a pattern. If you know how to use this and you're producing UMG, this is a really cool tool to learn because you can go from a wireframe, like a low fidelity wireframe, into an actionable prototype with the data that you need, and then pass that off to sort of production level programmers are gonna create the true system, which they may have already produced as well. It does help step along that chain. We will be looking at the power of MVVM. It's very powerful. What is a selection view model? How to create a selection view model? How Slate handles focus, which is going to be really useful because this is something that always trips me up. And we're always writing management code to like ensure that we've got the right state, despite it clearly has a flow that it wants to have. So this is going to be a good piece. The power of common activatable widgets. Yes, well, yes, they're very good. Okay, so there were some project files. I've already downloaded them, so you don't have to watch me do that.
Hello everyone. This is the video tutorial
It's a 5-minute video.
I promised I'd release after my hands-on lab
if it's coming
at
through.
Unreal Fest Orlando 2025. We'll be talking about using MVVM, Unreal Engine's model view model pattern, to handle UI navigation with a practical example. We will also leverage Common UI's activatable widgets to make our navigation truly focus-based and fix a bunch of bugs in the process. As part of this tutorial, you can download the project files, which consist of 3 Unreal Engine projects, which are all the same project at different stages, and an additional info folder where you see like there's a bunch of images, like the mockup, the in-engine version, widget breakdown, a cheat sheet with the view models and properties that we are using in the project, class diagram for this project, and then a bunch of other images that will help us like visualize what the selection VM is doing. You can just use the first of the projects if you want to follow the tutorial from start to finish. If you want to start with the selection view model directly, you can start with the second project, or you can launch the third one if you're only interested in the activatable widget part. An example of how we use MVVM is when I worked on the new item shop. I had to create this data-driven tile widget to display offers in the shop. So I broke down the different pieces of information required to display the offer. So for example, the highlight.
I've literally done this so many times as a UMG designer. We'll get something from Figma and we'll break it down like this, and then from here we can say, well, we need to know what this top text is, this image, we need to know the name, we need to know like an enum of the bundle type or the offer type in this case, and the state of the, in this case, the cost, I guess, the price, and a strike through price, like 2 separate ones. And then again, another state at the bottom. Oh, it's tags in this case, so I guess there can be multiple. I've done this for like a collection that we had for a game. But it's just funny looking at this slide. It is almost identical to what I did.
Text, the image, the name,
like, it was just a day's
type,
work where it was like
the price, and strike-through price,
stuff together,
tags,
breaking it down,
a bunch of things. So I broke them all down and defined the data type for each of them. And basically, once you do this, you have already defined what your view model looks like. So this was then the item shop offer view model. So then the engineer took care of using all our different systems, backends, gameplay, to get the data and to update these view model properties. And then I would use these view model properties to populate my widgets in UMG. And the cool thing is, one view model can serve different views, as was the case with the item shop tile widget and the offer inspection screen, both leveraging the item shop offer VM. As you can see, you don't need to use every single property of the view model in every view. For example, the tile widget, I'm not using the granted items property, which is an array of item view models that are like the cosmetics included in the offer. But you can see that in the offer inspection screen, I am using it to show these item cards that are, yes, showing what items are included in the offer. And that's really the, as was item shop offer view and shop tile widget and the offer inspection screen, both leveraging the item shop offer VM. As you can see, you don't need to use every single property of the view model in every view. For example, the tile widget, I'm not using the granted items property, which is an array of item view models that are like the cosmetics included in the offer.
Yeah, that's a good thing to note. So, got a view model, you want to make it pretty reusable, right? So it's essentially just a packet of data that represents a part of your game. And so rather than having, in this case, two separate view models, one for a screen at the bottom here and one for the screen at the top, that generally hold most of the same information, name, price, tags, etc. You have one for the top one and one for the bottom. You've got to maintain two almost identical view models. So you could either split them in terms of having like the core definition data and then like the extended data, or you could just have one view model that has all the data. It's very self-contained. It's easy to update and manage, and you know what it's called and where it lives in the code. And you just don't use some of the properties in one versus the other. So I think in this view model, for example, they've also got all of these extra item data that you could probably even click on. And so that'd be an array or a set that you would apply to like a tile view or some kind of panel in UMG that would populate those these here. They would populate these, but you're not using that information here. But you just have a view model that's got like one or two properties that you're not using, maybe some description stuff. So that's pretty cool. That's very good to note. I did the same thing in, again, like the collection that I had is like once you clicked on, the collection was built of collection items in a set. The set would populate the tile view. You could click on one of those and it would open a details panel that would have more information. Now that information was held as a property of the original view model. So,
but you can see that in the offer inspection screen, I am using it to show these item cards that are, yes, showing what items are included in the offer. And that's really the base concept and usage of view models. But I want to show you in this tutorial something slightly different. I want to show you how you can use view models not to represent data, but to handle UI navigation. We can use view models to store navigation data and screen states and leverage these basically notification system to facilitate communication between widgets. What we can achieve is we can fully replace events and delegates with view model properties because MVVM takes care of notifying the views when a property has changed. So the views don't really know about.
So I haven't watched this tutorial. This is me refreshing myself and also like getting a new view on MVVM or extra use cases that we can do. But I'm already sensing that what's going to happen is you push an input on your controller and that is going to update an integer as to the screen that you're on, and then the widget switcher is going to be listening to that property instead of coding it in your widget and say, essentially instead of coding it in your widget, which is great. Like you're just decoupling
each other's existence because they don't keep references of each other. They all keep references to the selection view model. You can swap them out, you can add some layers in between without really breaking anything. And since we use the same selection view model instance for all the views, we now have a single source of truth for the screen state. For example, the selection view model, we have a property for the selected item, and none of the widgets need to store any local variable for the selected item. They can just query the selection view model. That's really
cool. Okay, so just recapping here, we're replacing events and delegates that we would usually have in our UMG, and we're putting them in the view model to handle notifying the view that a number has changed, that you're highlighting a certain entry on a list. That's very cool. We're removing the dependencies between widgets. Widgets don't reference each other. Typically you'd have like a widget in a widget and you might have some hierarchy and you might say when I press this button on this screen, this particular widget has a function in it, might do something in there. You're decoupling that, you're reducing your size map or your reference chain. Well, to be honest, your reference chain is still going to be the same because they implement the widget, but you're not got these like hard coded dependencies. You could take that widget out and like you could just remove that entire widget. It's not going to break. If you've got one widget with another widget inside and you previously had some communication between the two in the UMG graph of the parent, and you took away that child widget, now the parent is going to complain, it's not going to compile. What they're saying here is that because these are decoupled and all that's happening is we're updating properties on a view model, I could take that screen away, put a different one in, and have it react to the view model. And that is again another one of the really powerful parts of view models in any engineering, but in Unreal's new flow here, is that you can, there's an iteration benefit there. Like you could, for example, if you're working on a large title and you've got like a second version of a screen or shop or a collection or an inventory or something, you could have people sort of on a branch working on like the next version of a whole screen that uses the view model or an iterated version of that view model, and you could slot it in and out almost at any time for testing, for like A/B testing even. In fact, for A/B testing, it's really strong. It's really good. Like you could have them both. You could have both widgets live, and you could push up the variant to a portion of your player base.
The gist of it. But let's look at a practical example of how we use the selection view model in Fortnite. We have our season pass screen. And for those who attended James Salman's talk, Powering Dynamic UI with View Models, or if you watched the recording, you already know that this screen uses various...
I have seen the game Megabonk. What do I think about the UI? Yeah, it's reactive. It's fun. It's very similar to Vampire Survivors in terms of like the pop in. It's very it's like endorphin fueled, right? Like it's very nice. It's good food for the eyes, like all these colors and flashy things going on. Um, Style wise, it's on brand with like the pixel art aesthetic that they've got. This like, sort of like low res PSX look that they've got. They've got this kind of pixel art visual dev style. I think that that obviously works really well as well.
view models to populate pages and rewards. Reward view model, pass view model, pass page view model, and so on.
Say that again.
Recording, you already know that this screen uses various view models to populate pages and rewards. Reward view model, pass page view model, and so on.
Yeah, so they're looking at this review model, the pass model maybe here. This model, it's like a player's level model. Yeah, and so this screen is going to be composited of various models, yeah.
But this screen also uses a season pass selection view model to store navigation data.
Season pass selection, VM, to store navigation data. The selected pass, the selected page, and the selected reward. Which infers that the same view is used for consistency, and so that the user is learning and retaining the learning between multiple screens, and the information is simply changing for which is the selected pass page. Well, I guess for the page, maybe not so much, but because pages might change. Chat says, Megabonk's simple look and gameplay of everything makes it come together really nicely. It certainly does. It's definitely consistent and well polished in that regard.
Like, what is the currently selected pass that we're looking at? What is the currently selected page? What is the currently selected reward? In the form of a pass view model, a pass page view model, and a reward view model. So the selection view model has those properties, and the widgets in the screen read and write these properties and can react to these properties being updated.
So this actually isn't done with integer, which I was expecting. This is done with direct reference, assumedly to a user widget, and assumedly so we can bind it straight to a widget switcher. I'm making a lot of assumptions here, as I like to do, until I find out otherwise.
An example is we have our reward tile widget that uses a reward view model, and the reward info widget that also uses a reward view model and displays additional information for the selected reward. So when a reward tile is selected, it will update the selected reward of the selection view model with its own reward view model.
Reward tile widget is selected and it updates the selected reward. So you click this, the selected reward is updated in the view model. The reward info widget is bound to selected reward, and when selected reward is updated, it updates the displayed information. I don't know if selected reward, it looks like maybe it's an object, sorry, rather than a user widget, because that would be, with the hearts and stuff, I suppose. Is this maybe just a U object that holds data? I doubt it's a data asset. Oh, that could be a data asset. that holds all this information, because that would be static data that goes into the game. But for something like Fortnite, I'd be surprised if this was static data and it wasn't something that you could update outside of the cooked project, right? Because I suppose it would need to be cooked because it's translated, it's like localized. So yeah, it's probably a data asset, maybe. We'll see. When selected reward is updated, it updates the displayed information. Yeah, because this has changed. So the arrows in the reward track are clicked. We update the selected page. So here, this will push the page along, which will, so the reward track assumedly gets updated. Now the selected page is updated. Yeah. We update the reward track to display the rewards of the new page. I find page a difficult word here because I would associate page or screen to like an entirely different look. Whereas it seems to be like they're saying it's a new selected reward page in terms of this is then contextualized as a page. But like the style of this whole page doesn't change, or does it?
So then in the reward info that is bound to the selected reward, its view binding will be triggered, and the reward info will update its display data to use the updated reward view model. Similarly, we have our reward track that has these navigation arrows to navigate between pages. And when an arrow is clicked, it will update the selected page. And then the reward track is bound to the selected page view model, so it will update its rewards to display the rewards of the new selected page. So that's our base concept. And in the next part, we're going to look at the Unreal Engine project, create our first view model bindings, and plan our next steps.
Nomenclature is massive, obviously, when you're producing a game. You want things to be there is a user experience behind writing your code and your setup of your classes and your system design so that things make sense and read nicely. Selected page for me is there's an ambiguity, there's an overloaded term there that like this to me is a page, but maybe they are referring to this as a page, like this section down at the bottom. So I'm a little apprehensive of this naming. It's not clear enough to me at first glance. And I'd then therefore have to ask a question in Slack. Be like, what do you mean? And maybe we'll find out in the next video. So the goal of this tutorial is to create functional navigation in an inventory screen with any input device. And so that's typically done in Unreal through Common UI. And so it can switch between keyboard and gamepad and update bound action widgets. So let's see. Let's watch.
So
it's a litmus check for me. It's like a little refresher.
Here is what we are trying to do. So we have these.
So I'm going to jump ahead of the gun here. Yeah, we've got coins. We've got what looks like either, yeah, the current capacity of the max capacity of an inventory. We've got our headers, and we've got our bound action widgets up here, which are our common UI elements, and there's likely to be common UI elements on here, or at least at the bottom of the screen. Typically in like a AAA game, you know, you have all of the inputs at the bottom right of the screen. And then we've got our highlighted item, name, an enum for its rarity, potentially. Localized enum, maybe. And then description, cost. Cool. Interesting.
Fantasy.
Yeah, I have I coded this. I scripted this little green circle on my mouse to move that around.
RPG inventory screen where we are just showing items, and we have different categories that will show different items. We have our item list for the selected category on the left, and then we have a details panel on the right, which shows information for the selected item, lets you equip an item, lets you mark an item as junk, and there's also like a pop-up that shows up a model if you try to equip a junk item or vice versa. That will tell you, hey,
oh, that's nice.
You want to do this? Yes, no.
So we're going to have Based on what we've already listened to from Irene here, we're going to have our view model for our page selection. We're going to have a view model for uh, potentially a separate one for the three different categories, or one view model that just holds a set, like a single set that's being displayed at any one time, because the display of all three categories is the same. And then a selected item view model for the details of sort of the image in the center and the details over on the right here. And that set of view models, I assume, is a set of view models, is going to hold whether it's marked as junk, and this will be a two-way, potentially a two-way boolean. So if you mark it as junk, you're telling the view model from the UI to update and change. And if you hit this equip button and you get that pop-up that we saw, and you press confirm, it goes the other way. It comes from the model, tells it that it's no longer junk. So yeah, this UI is probably going to have an example of that there with that mark as junk, that we can have the UI tell the view model what to be, and then that the system in the back end can tell the view model what to be. So it comes in from both. It can come from both ends. Like you get the option to do that, and the field notify will trigger in either direction. So that's pretty cool.
And there we go. It also reacts to the change of input. Right now I'm using gamepad, and you see the prompts at the top have updated, but my focus has remained in the selected item.
So they're using gamepad right now. You've got the bindings have all changed, and you've actually got these are appearing. That's an element of common UI action widgets. We've done some videos on that in the past, common UI action widgets. So this one is only displayed on gamepad, right? You can have like R and T bound to like junk and equip, or E D or something, if you want to, and you can have those be displayed. This is a property. It's a boolean that you can tick inside of your common bound action.
When I change category, the selection is reset to because has remained in the selected item. And when I change,
so when they change category, I'll be interested to see how they handle that. Because you can set things on the view model from the UI, you've got some options. So you request to change category through the pressing of the keep pointing at my screen with my hand. You request to update the page view model by pressing this button, or E or Q, I presume, or clicking on these, I suppose, as well, because they're probably buttons. You update the view model and you say, hey, I'm on page 2 now, and this is my new set of items, and my selected item at that point is the first one, because we know that that's going to be the logic. Or there's other things you could do. You could save it in your last data, like what was your last highlighted item from the ARMA screen, and then go back to that. And another way you could do it, I suppose, and I don't really like this way, is that your UI could say, hey, I just had my field notify for my pages updated, so I'm also going to set the selected item to like 0, which wouldn't be great.
Each category, the selection is reset really nice to the first item in the category. Really, and that's basically it. It's pretty simple, but it is a good example of how we can use the selection view model to update selected item and react to selected properties being updated.
Indeed, indeed. Okay, well, thank you for that. That's very cool. I mean, they didn't break down what was on here, but maybe they'll do it in the next one. We implement navigation in a simple inventory screen. We implement navigation in this inventory screen. We do. Yeah. I don't know if this is meant to be a video, but we'll see. Your first binding. In this part, you'll create a simple view binding. Yeah, so view binding. This is exciting. I haven't done this.
Let's open the...
So I haven't done view binding before. I worked in companies where they were really insistent, or the producers who'd work on other projects were like, I was responsible for the UI. And I went like a really dead simple way that made it really quick and easy to iterate. Well, I say easy to iterate, it stopped being easy to iterate towards the end, which I learnt my lesson. But yeah, I worked on a project where they were like, oh, we should have this kind of view binding, model view controller, some sort of pattern that says like which screen are we on at any given time. Whereas I just did it straight through like buttons and widget switchers and stuff. And there was never any like major stability issues. I don't think we ever got into a situation where anything was like majorly broke, but we did have to update the widgets all the time. And especially if we changed any code. But we had a navigation bar, and that was linked to a widget switcher, and it worked, and it was modular, and we could use it on multiple screens, and we could even have like top level navigation bars and secondary level through. We'd use like the bumpers and the triggers to do that. And we'd use like Q and E and A and D to skip between, which one are we navigating on, like sub layers of pages, and it worked fine. Like we had settings menus, we had player profiles, we had like equipment editing, loadout editing, all sorts of stuff. Yeah, I think it's like a review. It's like a YouTube review. So those YouTube reviews, they pause the video and then they just like talk over it. Yeah, and there's like little snippets of stuff in the back of my mind that never get like raised to the surface unless like asked. So, um, yeah. So like I say, I worked on a project once. Really excited for this. We're looking at binding to view, to update view, which has two benefits. Obviously, we spoke about all the benefits of MVVM, but one of the cool things is that with MVVM, you could theoretically track all the changes that happen through those field notifiers in a sequence, and then replay that in the future. So you could see like, say you got some data back from a game, and a player was stuck on a screen, or spent a long time on a screen, longer than you expected as a designer, UX designer or otherwise. Or as a programmer, you've got like a repro steps to like some issue. You could actually step back through the MVVM field notifies until you got to the point where they're on a certain screen, and maybe if you're saving the mouse position or the gamepad cursor position or the focused widget, then you could like replay the entire session's like front end gameplay, which is more for AAA. Like
Selection
you wouldn't
VM
need to do that
1
as an indie.
project. And the very first thing we can do is really just press play and see what happens. As you can see, nothing is working. That is to be expected because that's what we're going to do. We're going to make things work in this tutorial.
Nice.
We have...
Okay, before they get any further, I don't want to watch the rest of this 7-minute tutorial. The one of which apparently we're only 18 seconds in and I've spoke for the last 5 minutes. I presume this is part 1, which means it's this. I've already opened it, right? So we're missing tons of stuff in comparison, potentially. No? Okay, so I think we're here we go. It's yeah, so we don't have EQ, we don't have the descriptions. We have some buttons here that can get focused, but yeah, nothing's working. Oh, I just moved my view there. So here we've got all this access none. And so part of me is like, well, I should probably just step through this and just fix it. Let's go to the widget blueprint tab. VM selected category. Category VM. Set selected state. What is this? This is a widget blueprint button. It's this guy. Okay, where are you used? Reference viewer. You're used inside this widget here. Category tabs. This widget handles creating the category buttons and the category navigation using gamepad bumpers or Q and E keys. The important functions are the updated categories and the change category. So let's go to the event graph. Nothing in here. Oh, I've never seen this before. Public. They updated the engine? What version am I on? 5.5? Huh. I've never seen that before. So yeah, public specifier, public access. That's cool. Makes it easy for programmers to see that I'm coding my classes correctly when I'm doing private variables and private functions. Okay, cool. Yeah, what I don't like about this is that all of these are public. Like, that infers that someone can just access the widget and then grab like the text box and like change the text because it's not private. Anyway, so we have a view model. It's the inventory VM. That's cool. I prefer to put my type first and my subtype after. So like it's a view model, it is of the inventory type. Um, each their own. Okay, and we have this VM categories updated. Now, we have a dynamic entry box. I've never used a dynamic entry box before. Let's have a look at it. Dynamic entry box. A special box panel that auto-generates its entries at both design time and runtime. It's useful for cases when you can have a varying number of entries, but it isn't worth the effort of conceptual overhead to set up the list and tile view. Note that entries here are not virtualized as they are in the list views. So generally this should be avoided if you intend to scroll through lots of items. Okay. No children can be manually added in the designer. All auto-generated based on the given entry class. Number of designer preview entry. Okay, I see. So I could say 9 and it'll update. Sure. Okay, so this is similar to a list view, like they mentioned. However, instead of having to do a pre-construct to fill it with data, I mean that's the same as the list view. In the list view, you can literally do the same thing. Let's just take list view and we'll shove it in here. Yeah, so you can see here num designer preview entries, and you could put something in here as long as it had like it's not going to give me any options because I don't have any user list view entry interface based widgets to actually put in there. We also went over list views in like a fab video a couple of weeks ago, so you could always go take a look at that if you're interested. Okay, this does say PH label. Now, in here, if I go to view or window and I take a look at view models, it has a name here. Let's bring this down here. I'm curious if this is set up to allow me to directly bind. So I've dragged that in there now because that should be the name there, category name. And if I go to window again, view bindings, it's automatically created the view binding for me. So the other way that you can do that, if I remove this binding, yes, remove the binding. Again, this can now be changed to whatever we want, which we're not going to do because that's the default. And instead we could say, if we're clicked on something, it allows us to just add it. Or we could say we're not clicked on anything, but we are going to use the text block. And we're going to change the label and we're going to change it to the, where is it? Category VM, category name. Compile that. An optional widget binding of input action widget of the type common action widget is available, but we don't have one in here. So what we could do, either I broke something, whether I broke it, or it didn't have this. So if we go action, common action widget here, we've also got a widget BP input action prompt. I'm going to go with this one. This is an overlay right now. So what we need to do is wrap these with a horizontal box, I would say. I dare say, give this a little bit of padding, 20 to the left, maybe 10. That'll do. This is a common action widget. You can see in bound widgets, there's a common action widget called input action widget. So we'll make sure, in fact, if we compile it, it'll still give us the error. And it'll tell us input action widget. It needs to be specifically named input action widget. Also, the text label of category name couldn't create the destination field text label property. Text label is not writable at runtime. Pardon? Pardon? Yeah, this text block isn't updated here. So we've done this wrong. This is just like directly updating the label. So we need to actually pick text. Compile that. Cool. Now we have the pH label and we have this thing. Now what happens if we hit play? Weapons, armor, resources. Look at that. But nothing happens when we switch. So we've got part of the way there. Very cool. I'm going to set this to save on compile success. Okay, so let's just take a look at the next bug. We can't navigate, so why might that be? Let's go take a look at our systems. So, MVVM, category MVVM, that's fine. We've got input. Yeah. This is the controller data and not the actual input actions themselves. Which is a problem. I may be massively misunderstanding something. Input action data table. Yeah, I guess you don't need an enhanced input for this. This is like probably set up in the project settings as the sort of like default, some sort of default navigation. I forget exactly where that may be done. But anyway, yeah, I've seen that done before. Common input takes common inputs. So that is fine. Let's go back to our widgets and take a look at this. We have an action over here. Presumably, it's got an action in here. Does not. Oh, my triggering action. Here we go. Tab previous. And tab next. We've got a hierarchy with widget blueprint called category tabs. Well, that doesn't exist. I don't see category tabs. Oh, this is category tabs. Okay. And then VM categories updated. Pulls its information from the inventory VM category. So anytime that the inventory's view model categories updates, we update our category list and we create entries. So we create 3 entries here when this category list, and that definitely works because if we were to disable this, can I disable this? Boop. If we were to do that, we would have no categories. So that's good. It's working as expected. Just out of coffee. I'm going to stick some music on while we debug through this without watching the video because I don't know. That's the way I want to do this. Okay, so let's have a look. Our category tabs, that's very cool. Alright, this is like coming into a project that I've never seen before, on a team that I've never worked with, and just being like, yeah, I'll fix your UI, don't worry about it. Okay, so we've got our category tabs, that's fine. We do have these 2 actions, tab previous. Nothing is happening from here, so what we can do is say add previous, do a one way to the view model, update the view models. No, incorrect. So I would like to add another view model to the page. Interesting. So we definitely, I think, need actions here that one way to the view model to tell it what the page that's selected is. But let's just take a little look around, try and find out where probably some of these functions are already written for us. So that's that. Widget BP category. This information is coming from We've got capacity down here, 6 of 20. We've got our widget BB category, which is our self. We're updating our populated slots from the category slots. What view models have we got? We've got the VM and the inventory. Cool. And we've got the text currency here, which is coming from... Yeah, so text from integer. It's coming from the inventory VM current amount. So we have an inventory VM. Let's go take a look at that. We have currency amount and we have the categories. Which is just a view. Okay, yeah, it's the view model of the category. Okay. In the category, we have the items and the icon. Interesting, it has an icon. We never used the icon. Guess it wasn't necessary. And then we have a bunch of items which has all this information in. Board screen data. Music. Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, I was watching some tutorial videos and I was like streaming them and talking about them, pausing them, but forgot to turn the music down. Thank you for letting me know. So all this information inside the view model that represents an item. That is completely fine. Totally understand that. We have some actions. And we have this category widget, which is where the action gets performed. And this is just a holder of all of the information. There should be no functions in here. VM selected item image updated. Guess that's this one. Get the category tabs, which is this. Yeah. Get the inventory VM that we're looking at. No worries, Dev. Yeah, sorry about that. It's got to be something to do with the forward and next action. And the only view model that I have here is categories. I don't want to change that because that's just going to change these. How would we know? Do we have to edit the view model to change the selected category? Go back to, no, we don't need the VMs open. We can close those down. Category here. The slots are being populated from the category items. I'm curious where that gets populated from. Not here. This is just some debug functionality to be able to preview data. In a real game, these pieces of information are parts of game systems or subsystems or any kind of components or game state that you would manage. Populating the view models with data coming from various sources is usually an engineer's job, and it's the models portion of MVVM. Yep, absolutely. So here what we're saying is we're going to create inventory from data. We're going to take a data asset. We have 3 categories: weapons, armor, resources, and we have items in each. Very cool. And these items have, yeah, so tons of data in here, but theoretically quite a small file. Yeah, pretty small file, I would say. It's like kilobytes of size. Yeah, it's just a roster of information in there that holds all of our imagery, which is great. Which comes from this 50 stylized icons. Yeah, so it's all these icons. So we found something here, which is we are creating this. I could breakpoint in here. Yep, so we're going to fill this data. We're going to construct it. We're going to create reward VMs. I've done exactly the same thing before. And then we're broadcasting that we have 3 categories. In fact, let's go here. So we should have 3 categories. Ooh. 3 VMs. Each VM has, for the category, it has the items. We go naturally, we could go and take a look at the VM. Don't crash. Okay, well, it crashed. We would have 3 VMs in there. Have a look. Category. Should have items. Yeah, all the items, name, icon. Okay. Pretty sure what we're going to do. We're going to come down. We're going to say on clicked. Set something. We're not going to change the categories. We're not going to change the currency amount. This is the inventory VM. So save that for a second. What view models do we have access to? We have access to the inventory VM. And we have access to a single category VM. Populate slots. Where's this called from? Comes from item VMs. I guess anytime this changes, I don't know if this is being set. That's my main problem. I think I could come in here and I could say add a condition. Oh, I can't just add a condition. Okay, dynamic entries. Add this. Add a condition. Dynamic entry box for items changes. Yeah, again, my main problem right now is that we're not actually updating the. We should really start from where we were. Let's remove this. Yes, remove it. Play. Oh, it did add my conditions. It added it to whatever this is. Okay, well, this is going to take a second. Gotta undo every single one of these. I was like, why is this not adding a condition? So confused. It was adding it to a different widget. Yep. Yep. Interesting. is a fun challenge for me because like it's literally the concept of going into a project and being like, oh, the screen's messed up. Can you just fix the screen? And I'm like, I have no context and no, and I've basically got to look through what does exist and determine what doesn't exist and what I need to add and see if I can do it within the next hour or the next 50 minutes. And in the meantime, I do need to check my messages, so I'll do that too. Well, it looks like I have to go pretty shortly. So what we're going to do is watch this video. No, I don't want to. I don't want to. I want to figure it out. It's like a problem-solving little expedition. I've got 50 minutes. Let's wrap this up. So we know we need to update this from the moment that the tab changes, but we don't have any context of a tab changing. Or what tab we're in. So we need to call a setter on here when this entire view model changes, to be honest. This is a property, right? View model, category VM, find references by name. Just hit a search on that. See if we can find a setter. We've got a setter right here. We're setting loop category. Category, what's that about? We take the first category VM, we create an entry, we get the entry and cast it to the button that is from the list view or dynamic view. We set the category VM of that to the sure, loop category, meaning the category of this loop. Sure. Okay. Does that button do anything? It's a generic button. Is it a generic button? Question mark. Nope, it's a special type of button. It's a button tab, which might mean it has a click function. Hovered unhovered states, yeah. Event construct labels and states, sure. On set selected states, if it's not already selected, then don't do the animation. Set it to be selected. If it is selected, do the animation. Okay, so this is just animation stuff. You could actually convert this stuff to VM if you wanted. Set label text, sure. VM selected category updated. Where's that come from? VM selected category updated. Set selected state, which is just a visual. It's just a visual. I think this is probably this VM's selected category updated. It's probably partly to do with the second tutorial where they probably create a view model from scratch to manage the state of these. But pressing that button doesn't actually have a resulting effect. Like there is no, we know the VM category while we're in that button, which is good. We have a VM held within the button, which is sure. Is there a reference to this dynamic list? It's in populate slots, of course. So we need to determine when to call this, because this isn't called from anywhere. As far as I know, let's go find out. Extensions, bindings, get category slots. 01 bindings. Apparently it is bound. When the widget BP category, me, conversion functions. Where's that coming from? So here we do have a binding here that says the category slots are coming from category slots. This conversion function, max capacity 20, category items here. I'm curious where this conversion function comes from. Can I edit it? CF get capacity formatted text, CF get capacity, get category slots. That sounds like a very custom. Sounds very custom. Doesn't exist in here. And oh no, it's right here. Get category slots, length, number of valid items, etc., etc. Create empty item VM. Interesting. I wonder where it does that. Add an empty. Oh right, yeah, for the empty slots. So for every one up to the max capacity. Sure. And then this is just getting the capacity text. So these are just little conversion functions that go into the designer. So like for this down here, we're saying update this text from an integer. The value is, oh sorry, that's currency. Text capacity here, yeah. Get capacity formatted text. I don't know how this works with the field notify, because neither this nor this are represented. Oh, I guess it's like anytime the category items change. Yeah, that's the condition, I think. Bind this argument to a property, yeah. So anytime the category items change, that's when we can get the length and do the information. So that is how that works. Capacity 20, because that's an input variable of this custom function that we've made. And the items are coming from here. And we're saying that it's bound, bind this argument to a, yeah, bind it to a, yeah, sure. VM items, yeah. So yeah, it seems that the only thing that's not happening is that we're not updating this. We're not setting. We've got the loop category here, which is creating the inventory from. Create inventory from data. Construct a category and set its category name and its icon and its items, and then do that 3 times, and then at the end take inventory VM instance, where's that come from? Set assign categories to the inventory. Oh right, okay, yeah. That's a property of this class, probably. Okay, cool. And then just return the instance, which is create inventory from data. I wonder where that's called. Okay, we have the main widget here. Oh yeah, it's got the menu stack and the modal stack, so we've seen that before in the past. I haven't done a session on that, but we will do. Create the inventory from data. Reward screen. We push the inventory screen to the menu stack, yep. This is a really cool little feature. It was shown like 2 years ago, I would say, in a tutorial on Common UI. like, so you've got these various like push modules, push content, and then they've also like coupled in, I guess this is their own inventory, so they've got initialize inventory. I had produced like a core menu like parent class, and then I have my like inventory as its own thing, but for simplicity they've just gone this way. Okay, so we're setting that selected state, and so I wonder, category VM here. Can I not? I can call functions in here. Maybe I could just write a function that's just like set the category, but we'd have to set it on the inventory VM. You'd have to set it on the inventory VM. Inventory VM is going to be reference viewed all over the place, I imagine. Season pass VM. Got a little object director in here, shows us where this came from. How's it going? Hey everyone, so I'm good. I'm gonna go and watch the video, and then we're gonna give up on. It's nice to just check through these things, and a lot of that stuff that we did know where it was coming from, we did realize a bunch of stuff, but I don't have much time.
A bunch of buttons up here. We have a bunch of buttons here. There should be items here. Nothing is showing. There should be some description here. Nothing is showing. We also have a bunch of blueprint runtime errors that we are going to fix.
Maybe I should have gone back to fixing those errors. Just move on.
So let's just open some widget. We have our widgets folder here, and let's open our inventory widget. You see we have a bunch of design time tooltips for each widget. So this should be useful to explain what a widget is expected to do and some important functions for that widget. And in this project, the widgets are already set up and ready to be populated correctly when they receive the correct view model. And for example, if we open our item tile widget, we want to see view models. I don't see anything, there are no tabs. So if you don't see the tab, these are the two windows that we need to enable, the view bindings here and the view models here. So you can see this widget uses already item VM. When I say VM, I mean view model. I will use this a lot throughout the tutorial. And there are already bindings. So if this view model is valid, this tile widget will populate correctly. The inventory also needs some windows, uses an inventory VM. If we go in our additional info folder, we have not only a widget breakdown, which shows us the names of the different widgets, which I have opened twice. But we also have some sort of cheat sheet with all our view models and the different properties. So you can see in our inventory view model, I have an array of category VMs, which are the categories, all the categories in my inventory, and the currency amount, like the amount of gold, for example, that I have. And then for each category VM, we have the category name, which is a text, and an array of item view models, which are the items included in this category. And then we have, of course, the item VM, which has a bunch of pieces of information, name, description, and so on. So this will be used to populate the item tile and to display the info on the details panel. Back to our project. I want to give you just a little taste of view bindings in case you've never created a view binding before. So this is not even selection model. This is really how to create a binding. And as you can see here, what I want to do is I want to at least populate these category names with all the categories that we have in the inventory. So that, and we see we have dynamic the categories with the category view model array. So let's look for it. Button tab. And we can create that we have. I just that this widget, the tabs widget, is already creating these buttons using the categories that we have, systems and so on. I just created a bunch of testing functions and stuff that use this data asset here. So you see we have 3 categories.
We looked at all this.
In fact, if you go in the class diagram, you will see that I framed in red all the part that is like very much testing. So the part that in a real game would be handled differently, probably by an engineer using some systems. But in any case, let's pretend these systems are actually here. Let's create our first bindings. Widget text label of property. Spell me.
Yeah. So we bound this up and then we hit play and it worked.
Which is going to be the next part. There's a little reminder of how.
Oh, that's all they did in that video. Yeah, we did that quite a while ago. Okay, so next one. Create the selection view model in Blueprint. Find a place to construct it and initiate. Yeah, fair enough. Create this. Okay, well, let's do it.
Okay, so this is the second part.
This is 22 minutes long, by the way.
And this part is going to be focused on the selection view model, creating it, creating an instance of it at runtime, and then implementing a bunch of views in widgets so that we can read and write those view model properties. So if you started with the previous part, you can continue in the same project. Whereas if you started now, you can open the second project, selection VM 2, which is the project where we have already created our first bindings last time. So the very first thing we have to do is first we have to define what properties do we need in our selection view model. What is the navigation data we need to track to be able to make this whole screen work? So if we look at our mock, we have a list of items on the left. We have some categories on the top. We have a details panel and some buttons. And we have a large preview image here. So this details panel and this image will change depending on which item is selected. And what items are displayed here on the left will change depending on which category is selected. And basically everything really depends on these 2 pieces of information. What is the selected category? What is the selected item? So those are the 2 properties that we can use in our selection view model. So let's just start. We go to our MVVM.
So the irony here is that those 10 minutes where I was looking for the selection VM and trying to figure out like how is it updating the category VM, like just set category VM from the index of the selected button on the top. And then I sort of said out loud, like, maybe I need to create the selection VM and just plug its update into this button being pressed, and then everything is going to work. I'm pretty sure that's what she's about to do.
Folder where we have all our view models. So you can see we have the ones that we already created for the data. So like the item view model, inventory view model, category view model.
Should have just done
and
it.
we create a new view model that will be the selection view model. So it's a Blueprint class. For this project, we're going to use only Blueprint and no code. In some parts, you will see that this might be a bit limiting or a bit too scrappy, but it's just simple enough for this project because really this whole thing of the selection model is that it is really just for the widgets to communicate with each other. In any case, we start and we want to create a class that extends MVVM view model base. This is in order to create any view model in Blueprint. So select, and we'll call this selection VM. So we open our selection VM, and as you can see, this is a blueprint class. So we want now to add the properties. So here in variables, we just create new properties. So we said selected category, which will be a property of type category view model, because this is the one we want to track. And very important thing, field notify. This is what we have to flag every time in order for this property to notify when it is changed. And as you can see, it has the bell here, which means it's field notify. Second property, selected item. And this property will be of type item VM. And this also is field notify. We can either click here or just click on the bell here. Great. So now we created our two properties that we need. They're both field notify. One is a category VM, one is an item VM. Save and compile our view model. So now we created our view model. Second thing to do is to find a place where we can instantiate this so that we can use this during the game. So if we go to our widgets,
Probably from the category tabs.
we have our main widget, which is already responsible of instantiating the inventory. So this is our initialize inventory function, which happens on construct of the main widget. So as you can see here, we are creating the inventory from data, and then we are pushing the inventory widget and passing the inventory view model to it. So this will be a good place, at least in this testing scenario, to also create and instantiate our view model and to add it to our view model collection. And that's what we're going to do. So in initialize inventory, we're going to construct object from class. The class is the selection VM that we created. And now we constructed it, but it's just an object that we constructed. We need to add it to the view model collection so that we can access it from our views. So in order to add it to the collection, we need to get the view model game subsystem. From here, we can get the collection. So get view model collection, there it is. And the collection has a function that lets us add new view models to the collection.
This is exciting. The view model game subsystem doesn't exist. Oh yeah, check this out. So I found out how to get it. So I'm going to type in view model game subsystem. View model subsystem. View. Type it correctly. View model subsystem. MVVM subsystem. Oh, it's right there. It's either the binding subsystem or the subsystem or the game subsystem, either of them, I suppose. There'll be different ones, but yeah. That's funny.
Okay, so this is a struct. We right click on the pin, split struct pin. So you see this struct has a class and a context name. So this is very important, at least for the usage that we're doing of this. For this tutorial, we're going to use the global view model collection to access our view model. It's not the best way. And actually during the hands-on lab in Orlando, a smart attendee found a way to create a resolver that would allow us to use the resolver creation type rather than the global view model collection. We will see this more in detail later on. But to keep this simple, let's just use the global view model collection. So you can think of these as like our repository of view models that if we give the correct identifier, we can get the instance that we added to the collection. So we drag our constructed view model as the view model input. The class will be the selection view model. And let's find a context name that we need to remember. Selection VM is the simplest and most straightforward. So what we just did means that once we implement views for our view models, our views are going to ask, how am I going to access this view model? Are you going to send it to me or am I going to get it from somewhere? And we will choose, you're going to get it from the global view model collection. And in order to identify which one we should get, we need to make sure that we use the same identifier that we added in the context name. So this phase is done. We constructed it, we added it to the collection. Actually, let's construct the selection VM and add it to the view model collection.
Pretty sure that
okay.
That's it.
Now, we created a view model, we constructed it, we added it to the collection. Next step is we can start using it.
So back here.
So in order to use it, let's first identify who needs to use it and how. So if we go back to our inventory, one thing is we want to be able to select categories. So we could start with that. So when do we want to update the selected category? So we want to do it when we click on a category or when we switch categories using these input action prompts here. So let's open the category tabs widget. So as you know, because you saw it in part one, we have this button tab widget, which is the category button. So we want to make sure that when we click on this button, we update the selected category. So let's get our on-click event, which will be here. Let's go to the event graph. On-clicked. Okay.
They're doing it through there. Earlier, when I was doing this, I was attempting to do it through the
So how do we
Actual
access the
click
view model
domain.
then? So first thing, we need to add it. We need to implement a view for it. Selection view model. So plus view model, add a new one. Selection view model, that's the one we select. And as I mentioned before, now it's going to ask you, how am I going to get this view model? And we're going to select global view model collection. We don't really use the global view model collection in Fortnite. Usually the two ways we get view models are via manual or resolver. Manual is when there's another widget or class that passes the view model to us. Resolver is when we know that there's just one instance of this view model, and we are going to have a resolver asset type that will just figure out what instance this is. So in order to keep this simple, we're going to use global view model collection, which has the downside that every time we need to input the identifier, the one that we selected previously, that we input previously, selection VM. As I mentioned during the lab, an attendee was able to create a resolver asset type that was able to output the correct view model. So in that case, you only need to do resolver and nothing else. Select the asset type that you created. But since it adds a bit of complexity right now, let's just keep it simple and use global view model collection. So doing this just allows us to use the view model property to access them.
I don't see any problem with this. You're basically saying there's a singleton by name, and it's a view model that exists in the collection that's global. It's a static, well, it's not static, it's dynamic, but anyway, yeah.
And that's what
I
we're
don't
going
see
to
a problem with it.
We're
Why would you make a
you will see
resolver to
in
get
the
it
view
from a
model tab,
specific
now we
place
have
and add casting and all kinds of things when you've got the functionality to get it by string, and there's some human error involved there. I like
the
it.
selection view model. So control drag to get to the variable. So when this button is clicked, we want to update the selected category. What does it mean? It means we want to update the selected category property with what? With the category view model that this button already has. And that's what we're going to do. Set selected category. And what is the selected category? It is going to be my own category view model, the one of this button. Okay. And now who needs to know about the selected category being updated? That would be this widget here, because this category widget will basically display different items based on what category is selected. So if we open the category widget, we see it uses a category model, and it uses that in order to get all the items from it and display the items. It also uses the inventory model in order to display the currency amount here. So now it will also need to use the selection view model in order to update its own category view model to use the selected category view model. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to add a view for the selection view model. We're going to make sure global view model collection. This is the thing that I usually forget most of the time when there's an error. So always remember to add the identifier. So now we added it, which means we can use it. And it's going to be pretty straightforward, because basically what we want to do, we want to select the root widget. And so it's going to be this guy here. Where is it? Here, it is sorting them by widget selected. So this guy already had a binding here. That's why it was added at the bottom of this list. Doesn't matter. So what property of this widget do we want to update? The very own category view model. This is what we want to update. And based on what? That would be based on the selected category. So we can just drag the thing here. So now what we did so far is when a category button is clicked, we update the selected category, and this widget is supposed to react to it and show the items of that category. Let's see if that happens. So initial state, we haven't clicked on anything, so there is nothing selected. But if I click on weapons, you see now this category has been populated. If I click on armor, this is populated. If I click on resources, this is populated. Of course, if I click on these items, nothing happens because we haven't implemented navigation for the selected item yet. One thing we want to do though is see, we can use Q&E to change categories. Right now, it's not doing anything. So that's what we want to implement as well. So let's do it. So we have our category tabs widget here, which has this input action prompts, previous and next. So when these are triggered, we want to update the selected category there as well. As always, we need to be able to access our selection view model. So we add a view for it. And as always, we're going to use global view model collection. And as always, we're going to type selection VM. Now we want to get the on-triggered event of these input action prompts, previous and next, both of them. And so what we want to do now is we want to update the selected category to be the previous or the next one in the array, depending on if we triggered previous or next. So in order to get the array of categories, we already have our inventory view model, which has the array of categories. So what we're going to do is I'm getting the inventory view model, control drag to get it, and I'm getting the array of categories that is part of it. So these are my categories. I want to find the index of the currently selected category in order to be able to find the index of the previous or the next one. So I will use the selection view model to get the currently selected category.
I'm literally already doing it.
and I will find in our array of categories the selected one. This will give me the index of the selected category. So I want to select the previous or the one. So I want to add one or subtract one. Actually, I can just use a function in order to reuse it for both actions. Change category, I will name this function.
Yeah, that's what I did. Increment selected category. Do you want to increase it? If you do want to
This is the index of our currently selected category. I want to add or subtract one. So I will, in order to generalize this, I will use like an offset that will be +1 or -1, so that in the two different events, I can just add a different offset and reuse the same. And actually, I never like spaghetti, so you can just get an input parameter as if it was a variable. We'll show this little f here. It means this is the function parameter. So we're adding offset, so we're adding +1 or -1. So this is the index of the previous or next category. So now what we can do is we can get our categories and get that index. Just gonna tidy up a little bit. So this will be our selected category. So we're just gonna grab the selection view model, set selected category, and it will be this one. And of course, you might wonder, yeah, but what if I'm in the first or last category? Won't I get an invalid index? And you would be absolutely correct. One way to prevent this would be to just verify that this index that we're trying to get is valid. So we can do, actually, let's grab it from here, is valid index. So if the index that we're looking for is valid, we do something, otherwise we don't. That's why we add a branch. Is it valid? Then update the selected category. Is it not valid? Then don't do anything.
If you're increasing, then go back to 0.
So now we can use this function
if you're
in the
not,
previous and next.
go back to the. If you're not increasing, you're going backwards.
For previous, it will be -1.
That should be fine.
The offset, and for next, it will be 1.
Should be fine.
And let's see if it works. Once again, initial state, we haven't selected anything, we haven't clicked on anything. So let's just click on something, and now let's press E. And we see that now the categories are changing. What is not changing are these buttons. They're not showing as highlighted or selected. And that's because these buttons, where are they? Let's get to them here. These buttons don't know what is currently selected or whether they should be selected. And if we look at the functions available here, we have a function that is already set up to react to a selected category being updated. And as you can see, we're using the naming convention VM_, which is also the naming convention we use whenever we use ViewModel in Fortnite. Every time we want to use a function for a view binding, we just put _. That makes it much easier to find in the list and also to organize our functions. So what this function does is it will compare whatever selected category with the own category view model of this widget and set its own visual selected state based on whether they are the same or not. So that's what we have to do. We have our selection view model. We want to call that function. So we will use the root widget. That's where all the functions are. And as I mentioned, this is alphabetical order. So I go to the V for the functions and I find selected category updated. And I'm passing the selected category. So as you can see, this button is reacting to a category being updated, and it is also updating a category. So if we go here, first initial state, as we mentioned, is still bugged, but we click on one of these, and now you see only the selected category is showing as selected, and the other ones are showing as deselected. So that's already a win. Now we want to correct that initial undefined state, and that's because when we create the categories at the beginning, we're not selecting anything. So we need to find a point during the execution where we can also initialize our selection. So let's say we have just created our category buttons. Now let's just select the first category by default. So that could happen here because this is the widget that handles creating the category buttons. So if we go to our functions, we have this VM category updated function, which creates the category buttons. So at the end of this, we can select the first category, for example. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to grab the selection view model. We're going to set selected category. And the selected category should be the first category. So we already have actually an array of categories here, so we can just reuse these and get the first one. Here is also where you could add some failsafe, like making sure that the array is not empty or something like that, so that you don't trigger a runtime blueprint error. Okay, so we're getting the first one, and that's going to be the selected category. Let's see if that works. And it does work. Now, weapons is the selected category, and the initial state before I click on anything is initialized. So that's good. So now we basically implemented the category selection. In the next part, we're going to implement the item selection. To prevent this would be to just verify that this index that we're looking for is initial state selected react, we use VM selected category being updated. And as you can see, we're using the naming convention VM_, which is also the naming convention we use whenever we use ViewModel in Fortnite. Every time we want to use a function for a view binding, we just put _. That makes it much easier to find in the list and also to organize our functions. So what this function does is it will compare whatever selected category with the on category view model of this widget and set its own visual selected state based on whether they are the same or not. So that's what we have to do. We have our selection view model. We want to call that function. So we will use the root widget. That's where all the functions are. And as I mentioned, this is alphabetical order. So I go to the V for the functions and I find selected category updated. And I'm passing the selected category. So as you can see, this button is reacting to a category being updated and it is also updating a category. So if we go here, first initial state, as we mentioned, is still bugged, but we click on one of these.
Okay, let's set that up. Interesting. So we're saying of this button tab, there's actually an entire function, which I'm assuming is, I would have assumed, wait. VM selected category updated. Oh, yeah, okay. I keep thinking of this back to front, but basically it's saying do this when this, and in this direction, I guess. So when this happens, do this. I keep thinking of it in the wrong direction. So yeah, when the selection VM changes and the field notify occurs through this bell, then we're going to do that. Okay. 1, 2, 3, yeah. Okay. Can't believe how right or close I was at the very beginning. I've got 12 minutes to do the last bit. Let's updating
a category.
Let's do it.
So if we go here, first initial state, as we mentioned, is still bugged, but we click on one of these, and now you see only the selected category is showing as selected, and the other ones are showing as deselected. So that's a
using the selection VM to select items and creating setter functions for the view model properties. Yeah, so maybe I can just quickly go through that. So I think we're at a place where, yeah, if I click these, this isn't updating and this isn't updating. And for now, we'll just focus on that and we won't worry about this Marcus junk stuff, and then we'll close up the stream. So essentially, we're able to click these, but it's not updating the selected item. So if we jump over to the item here and say on widget item, assumedly clicked, we want to go into view models and add the selection VM, which comes from the global path using selection VM. And on clicked, we're going to go to selection VM and set the selected item, bind it to this item VM here, just this item VM, straight up. These don't maybe update based on that information, so we'll just double check that. Designer here, we have an image for the large preview. We have a view model where we'll add the selection VM. Again, it comes from the global selection VM. When let's grab this image actually and add that. We'll remove this one. We want to edit this. Guessing brush image from selection selected item large image. Not work. Image large preview brush resource large image can create the destination. So it's the wrong type of binding. So we might need a conversion for like image or texture. Get brush resources texture 2D. No, it doesn't like that. Okay, I'm going to jump back to the video because I actually don't know how to do that. I did it
is already selected.
like weeks ago. It's been a hot minute.
We have to think if updated. Right now,
show me your bind. You do have a binding, right?
change collection. And this is the cool thing. You don't need to create a widget that uses an item VM if you only need one property from this item. This screen, we can just, this is a view model. So this has field notify properties in there. So we can literally just grab the large image and drag it here.
VM selected item image updated. Is that a function? Oh, okay, that didn't work. What if I go here with this selected and I look at this and I just say, hey, I want it to be here. Or sorry, here. Bonk. Yeah, it doesn't like that. Couldn't create the destination field again.
So now this will use the large image property of the selected item property of the selection view model. So we don't always have to pass the entire view model. We can just pass one property as long as it is field notify. Let's see how that works. So
what's
item.
That function there? VM selected image.
And this is our inventory collection. And that's the
Okay, they made a function. If it's valid, then set the visibility, and otherwise, like set brush from soft texture. Yeah. I wonder how I did it, because I didn't need to do that. Like I just did it through the view model and I didn't need a function. But we're gonna make the function. So it's already here. It is literally here. Function already exists. Handy. It's not letting me select it. Because it needs to be this. Okay, cool. A little bit of a glitch in between there. It doesn't update when you switch either. Despite, I definitely updated the item when I changed category. At least I thought it did. Oh no, I don't. Huh. Set selected item to get item. Sorry, no. Category, get items. Get 0. In fact, what we could do is get category. Update the selection VM on any of this occurring. It's a little bit of a nasty. Yeah. Okay. So that's not working. That's very cool. This one over here is the last element, and we have 5 minutes left to do that. So let's go over to our widgets and check out our details panel. May or may not. That's just the helper. This is the details panel. It's coming from the item VM. How about the rarity? Are you bound? It's not bound. View models, rarity. Can we do rarity? Is that going to work? No, it's going to say that the rarity is not convertible. So let's see if we can go, if there's a conversion, get rarity name from enum. Sure. And the enum will be bound to the item VM's rarity. Let's compile that and see if that's working. No, the item's not updating still. For the reward description, that is actually set up as description already, so that's cool. Okay, so the description is there, item VM. The item details Where's this coming from? Item VM. View model, selection. Anytime your, where did it go? That's kind of annoying that it does that. But okay. Here we go. Found it. So item details. Anytime that your selection VM changes. Hello. I need to. I forgot something. Global instance selection VM. Yeah, you're gonna complain for a second while I figure this out. Just remove this. Add anytime I want the selection VM, please. Oh, I suppose. I suppose I'm doing something wrong here. Control Z, Control Z, Control Z. Can I get rid of? No. Okay. This description. We have description already bound to the item. It's interesting. We're coming from the item VM here. We could just change all of this. I essentially just want to update my item VM whenever the selection VM updates. VM selected category updated. Maybe we'll do something similar to that. So item description here. Let's make a new function. Let's just duplicate one of these. VM is equipped. Let's just say VM selected item updated. We could actually take an input of item VM. Guess set our item VM like so, and just call this item. But this, no, it's not what I wanted to do. Add a condition or add a call to item. VM selected item updated. Oh, I guess you could just click this. And this just comes from here. Maybe that's fine. There we go. So it happens here. That's fine. Then we just need to set up this as an initialization. So I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know if this is going to work. Yeah, this may not work. View model, subsystem. No, that doesn't work. MVVM. Get the game model view system. Get view model collection. Get model. Yeah, model. Model. Get. Add. Add instance. Instance. Find first view model of instance of type. Find view model instance. Selection view model. Selection. Get item. Okay. Get selected. No. Okay. Cast to selection VM. I really don't like this because there's no guarantee that this is ready. Get item. I mean, it should update. This shouldn't have been necessary because we are bound. It's interesting. This is not selected actually. Click. So something's wrong there. This works when we change category, but in our main inventory, is it main? We create a selection VM, add it as an instance. We constructed it, but we haven't set anything up on it. We initialize. We're just initializing them. Where? Here. Here. The inventory VM instance has categories. Inventory VM gets returned. Hmm. Well, that's fine. We're 2 minutes over. We pretty much have that set up, so this is pretty cool. We're getting the data uh, from the setup, and we could carry on through the tutorial and get these elements sorted as well, which would be pretty cool. And otherwise, cool little tutorial has definitely refreshed my memory on MVVM. There are different ways of doing it all. Thanks for watching. Hope it was useful. I need to return back to the regularly scheduled programming of my day job. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you in another one. I'm going to take a lot more time doing MVVM as it is more commonly used in AAA, which is the kind of clients that we work with. So just keep myself brushed up so that I can continue my work and just rapidly iterate that stuff. So yeah, thanks for joining. If you have any questions, let us know in the comments, and we'll see you soon.